The reason people have so much trouble sticking with Pinterest is because it's not an instant gratification platform. We are so used to Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and whatever it is, where you're refreshing your app every 5 minutes to see how many views you have. And that is a dopamine hit for people that they want. That is why these platforms have users. Pinterest does not function that way. Most of my clients and my students start seeing results with consistent work on the strategy 6 months to a year. And when people think of, do I want to spend 6 months to a year putting in effort on a platform, most people don't have that kind of stick-to-itiveness with their businesses. They get distracted by the bright and shiny instant gratification promises. What I will tell you is if you do have the patience and stamina to stick with using the platform for that long, you will absolutely see results, and it will be the best ROI for marketing that you've probably ever had.
All right, friends, welcome back to another episode. I am thrilled today to be joined by a in real life friend who I met locally for coffee, which is a rarity in this online space. Kara Chase, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much. And it's so funny we're doing this online, even though we've been friends in person. Yes.
Well, truth be told, we are not as close physically anymore. You've recently moved a little. I miss our coffee dates. I sure do. We're going to probably talk about that today. But I do love the online virtual coffee chats because I don't have to wear pants and I'm in the comfort of my house. And I don't know, it's just normalize it. I think it's cool. I do Zoom dates with people I could
all the time
technically meet in person.
It makes it easier to be really connected with people, for sure.
Yes. Okay. Well, before we do the whole, now we're going on inside jokes and tracks, we want to welcome everyone to the show. Let's just set things up properly. So Kara, I know you as my local friend that I meet for coffee at our favorite coffee shop, but also as the Pinterest guru. I hate that title, but you're really damn good at Pinterest, which is all the questions today. But there's so many other fascinating things. Give yourself the good old fashioned formal intro so that everybody can join us in the conversation.
Yes. So as you said, I do Pinterest, right? I'm the same way. I'm like, do I call myself an expert or a guru or whatever? I do Pinterest and I do it really well for online entrepreneurs. So anyone that has a business online where they want to drive more traffic to their website, I teach them how to use Pinterest effectively and why it's such a fantastic marketing platform. I have been in business since 2015. I niched into Pinterest in 2017. So I have been at this for a while. I have my own business, my own brand at karachase.com. And I kind of spread myself out over doing one-to-one stuff and my Pinterest marketing program that I have for people. I kind of do all the things in the online space.
I love it. And I'm super excited to talk about some of these things today because I just confessed to you before we hit record that I suck at Pinterest. And I say that with I love Pinterest for pinning recipes and decoration ideas. Right. And I have all these boards for around someday what my house will look like.
Right.
The Pinterest for business, if I'm being totally honest, I have literally no idea. I just hear people say to use it. And I felt really silly in all of our conversations. You and I have been chatting. I felt silly ever admitting that out loud, but here we go, full public, everyone's listening. Well, I'm going to ask you all the questions today because I do think that it's one of those tools or marketing tactics that everyone kind of knows what Pinterest is. But it also is a little confusing around how do we use it for business. So we're gonna dive that in today. We're gonna talk about quite a few different things with marketing. But first, I really want to call out my favorite thing to talk to you about, which is the fact that I'm gonna call it something different than what it actually was. But in my head, you used to be a secret agent.
So technical term,
Yes.
the technical job title is special agent.
Yeah. So I want to know, like, you got to share the story, right, around how someone graduates from college, you become a special agent. I'm going to call you secret agent. You're secret 007, Kara. How does one go from that? Because you had a pretty established career to now you're doing online marketing and you have this phenomenal brand that's very personalized. Like, we got to hear that story.
Yeah, sure. I'll try and keep it short because as you can imagine, there's like a lot in there, right? So, went to 4-year college. I was recruited as a special agent right out of college. 22 years old, was doing high-level criminal investigations. I worked on the San Diego-Mexico border. So you can imagine how busy that was. Did all sorts of high-speed stuff, really grew up in that job. You can imagine as a 22-year-old with that kind of responsibility, you just learn a lot of life skills. So a few years into that career, I started realizing how unfulfilled I felt and how much it was severely affecting my health. But I was making really good money. I was doing something that I thought was going to be super cool, right? Everybody's like, "Ooh, that's amazing." And I'm like, no, it's not like the movies. Like, it's totally different than what you probably
I'm just
think
envisioning the show. I got really into a few years ago, the show Blacklist. And I'm like, oh yeah, you're like, it's, I mean, what we like the Hollywood versions of things in our minds is not.
It's totally different. So. There's a lot more paperwork than you can possibly imagine. So 10 years into that career, I left and I quit with zero plan. The only thing that I knew is that it was taking years off of my life and I was truly deeply unhappy. I had a series of really horrible supervisors. It was that moment of, if I stay much longer, I'm going to have the golden handcuffs, no pun intended, criminal investigations, and not be able to leave. It won't make sense to leave. And it was just that, like, I gotta go. I gotta go. Everybody thought I was nuts because it's a stable career. It's high speed, it's one of the few jobs with a pension still, like all this kind of stuff. I had no idea what I was going to do. So I left, knowing that I would just figure it out. And meandering about a year and a half, I ended up becoming the social media manager for the band Megadeth and Dave Mustaine. If you are not into heavy metal, you probably have no idea who they are. That's totally okay.
That's why I had to ask you to repeat the name 3 times. Right? We were talking before. I'm like, this is not my genre.
What?
Like, Bruno Mars? Nope. Okay.
No. Okay. So if you're familiar, I'll shortcut this for you. If you're familiar with the band Metallica, most people are. Dave Mustaine was the founding member of Metallica. He was the lead guitarist for the founding band of Metallica. So he's got some chops for sure. So anyway, I knew nothing about social media. I taught myself everything because I saw an opportunity and I saw a need. And I taught myself everything on the fly. This was the wild west of social media. This was like 2012. So it was before Facebook did their big algorithm change and went to ads. It was like, everything was fair game. So I ended up managing 13 million fans across 17 social media accounts as my first job in social media.
I like into it. You were trained as a secret agent, so you're good.
So I'm good, right? So it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot, and I set myself up for a second career. So after a couple of years, things kind of ran its course, as it does with celebrity in the music industry and all that kind of stuff. And I started my own business in 2015, and I did all digital marketing because that's what I did for Megadeth. I started their email marketing strategy. I did all their social media. I did stuff with their website. I did, anything and everything, you name it, started up e-commerce stuff with them. So that is what I did when I started my first business, was anything under the digital marketing umbrella. And then within a year, Pinterest really stood out to me as like, hey, this is like the best ROI for the least amount of effort. And then by 2017, I was like, no, Pinterest is it. And I niched, and it was the best thing for my business. And I've been doing that ever since, along with a really heavy dose of entrepreneurship and productivity, because I became a mom. two times over the course of all of this and navigating all of those things as a small business owner as well.
Yes. Okay. I love your story so much. Thank you so much for sharing it. Because I think it's one representative. Maybe not a lot of people have experience in such a specialized profession or working for such a famous band, right? That celebrity factor. But I think it is representative of the idea that we all have these very eclectic and seemingly random experiences that lead us to this moment to dive into entrepreneurship. Like how it's just fun. Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Okay.
And I want you to make your case for why the heck we should be paying attention to Pinterest.
Yeah, I can give you two words for that. Evergreen content.
Okay. Say more on this, because in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, I have this same affinity for YouTube. So I'm thinking that because we're in this, let's set the context here. I feel like we're in this little bit of bubble in the online space, which I think anybody who joins the online marketing world, you experience very quickly that, oh my gosh, we're in this very weird bubble world that we didn't know existed. And then we're here, but it feels like being online, like especially Instagram or Facebook, like you have to be omnipresent every day, cranking out content, and it can get really, really exhausting. So take that pivot over to why Pinterest is maybe a little bit of a different pace.
Yeah, it's a completely different pace. And I love that you correlated it with YouTube, because that is the core of why the platform is different. It is an SEO engine. It is not social media. So as you can imagine, with managing social media for 13 million fans, I got pretty jaded when I was doing that kind of high level work all the time in social media. And just the constant content treadmill and trying to figure out what works and all of that. So the difference is Pinterest is not social media. It is a visual search engine, and the content lives forever. So what do I mean by that? I mean, yes, if you put up an Instagram post, you could scroll back 2 years in somebody's profile if you're stalking that, right? But you're not going to see that content.
Just don't hit like, because then it's going to be public that you're a stalker.
Little weird. So, but the algorithm is not going to show you that content after 24 to 48 hours, give or take. There's a lot of new things with the algorithm lately, but it's pretty short-lived. With Pinterest, because it's a search engine, it functions on keywords. So what that means is the algorithm starts learning what your content is about, what your specific pin is about, and it will show it to the right people at the right time who are actively searching for a way to solve their problem. So Pinterest is an inspirational and aspirational platform. And like we talked about, right, you really only use it for recipes and your bathroom remodel you might get to next year, whatever it is. But when you think about, okay, how do I think of Pinterest as just a normal personal user? When do you go on Pinterest? When you're looking to get inspired, when you're looking for ideas, when you're looking to research and gather information and get ideas, that is the same place people are in when they are searching for anything, whether that is, how do I create a YouTube strategy? You might look for it on YouTube, but a lot of people search on Pinterest for that as well. Looking for planner ideas or to-do list ideas or, whatever it is in your industry, in your space, people are on Pinterest and using it to search because it is a visual platform. It's so much more user-friendly for people as far as that quick visual hit of, is this something I'm interested in? So does that answer your question? I could keep talking and talking and talking.
No, I think you nailed it, because I think coming back to the sheer logic of the like in real time expiring content, if you will, versus that evergreen. I don't know why the immediate example or metaphor that came to my mind is like buying groceries, where we buy, although it's wonderfully nutritious, ignore this representation, but fruits and vegetables, they have a shelf life, right? How many times we go buy vegetables and then we put them in the crisper drawer, forget about them, and they go bad.
Right.
And it was like wonderful intentions. But the stuff in our pantry that's like the canned goods or whatever else that it could actually, if you have to cook and you can't go to the grocery store, you can pull from it. So I'm just thinking like the shelf life thing is huge. And especially in this world where we're creating so much content, I think a lot of entrepreneurs are feeling burned out because they're not getting traction from their content. And I think a slight pivot of going, well, where are you pointing your content like to? That could be a question. Because I think for a while I was just posting on Instagram, right? Or on my email list, which you and I were chatting before we went live. I have 125 episodes on this podcast. And we've maybe dabbled in putting some things on Pinterest, but oh my gosh, what an opportunity to be able to drive traffic to all of this existing content.
Yeah. So 2 points I want to make here on that. One of my top traffic drivers every single month is a blog and a pin to that blog that I created in 2015.
2015?
So when you see all those cool infographics about like how long does a piece of content last, right? And you see like a tweet's 12 minutes and an Instagram. I have yet to see the end of a lifespan of a piece of content that I created on Pinterest. Still,
that's crazy.
2021, 2015, it still is one of my top traffic drivers every single month.
Okay.
Would you make a little effort to learn and implement a simple strategy for a platform that gave you those kinds of returns? Yeah. Point number 2, you talk about 125 episodes. Here's the thing. If you decided to stop your podcast tomorrow, which I hope you don't because it's amazing, you would have limitless amount of content you could put on Pinterest that drives traffic back to those episodes, however long you wanted to. On Pinterest, it's not about creating more content. It's about creating more pins for the content you have. It is the ultimate repurposing.
Yeah.
You can create however many pins that go back to the same URL on your website or landing page or opt-in or whatever it is that you want. I continuously do that to test for my funnels, for my free opt-ins. I'm always playing with new pins, new templates, whatever. I don't have to create a new landing page. I'm simply creating new content that drives traffic back to whatever that page is.
Okay. I love this. I have to ask a direct question because I saw somebody talking about this earlier this month and it got me thinking. So when all the platforms, right, you have LinkedIn, Facebook, like all these different social media platforms. And you mentioned before back when Facebook, you said it was at the peak at 2012, right? Before the algorithm started coming in, right? Each of these platforms, there tends to be this tipping point, right? Where it's like a free for all, you get all this exposure, and then it's got enough users to start getting sophisticated to start choking back what it shows, right? The algorithm comes into play. I've heard that, okay, with Pinterest, it used to be that, oh my goodness, it was a free for all, you get all this exposure. But now if you're just getting started, it's not as easy if you were in however many years ago. Is there any truth to that?
Absolutely, there is. So Pinterest right now is at that tipping point. I'm not going to lie and be like, oh, it's whatever. The changes that I've seen from niching into Pinterest from 2017 to today, they're big changes. And you're right. It's just like every platform where they get more sophisticated, more users, they roll out paid ads and all of that kind of stuff. So the strategy today is not the same as the strategy in 2015. They constantly come out with all new, they call them products, right? But like idea pins are what they're pushing right now. Video pin, they have all sorts of different things that you can create as content. My foundation of my business, the way I teach and how I run my marketing is you can play with all the different things that they offer all you want. But at the end of the day, I use Pinterest to drive traffic to my website. I know how to do that. And everything else that they come out with as a platform is just icing on the cake, but not really meat and potatoes since we're going with food and pantry analogies. Right? So it's like, okay, if I'm looking at my strategy for the month and I know what I want to create pins for that goes back to my website, I might put up one idea pin or a few video pins or whatever it is, but it's not the bulk of my strategy because I do enough testing and looking at my analytics to know that Pinterest still works as intended as a visual social media platform, and it drives traffic back to my website. So do you need to be aware of, yeah, it's different than it was 6 years ago, whatever it was, for sure. Is it as easy as it used to be? Well, it never really was easy. And that is the thing that people get hung up on. They want to compare today to 5 years ago. The reason people have so much trouble sticking with Pinterest is because it's not an instant gratification platform. We are so used to Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and whatever it is, where you're refreshing your app every 5 minutes to see how many views you have. And that is a dopamine hit for people that they want. That is why these platforms have users. Pinterest does not function that way. Most of my clients and my students start seeing results with consistent work on the strategy 6 months to a year. And when people think of, do I want to spend 6 months to a year putting in effort on a platform, most people don't have that kind of stick-to-itiveness with their businesses. They get distracted by the bright and shiny instant gratification promises. What I will tell you is if you do have the patience and stamina to stick with using the platform for that long, you will absolutely see results, and it will be the best ROI for marketing that you've probably ever had.
Okay, that I'm making a big note here because we're going to cut that little clip, and that's going to be the intro for the show today.
Nice.
It like exactly what you just said around this idea of the shiny object. We have to be way more aware of that as entrepreneurs. Like, I don't think people are aware as how much their decisions, like how it's driving their decisions by them wanting to feel good, wanting to feel like they're making progress right at the gate. But when it comes to marketing, you have to make data driven decisions, and we have to be thinking way more strategic long term. So I love how you just described that. And this is one of those things that, sure, it's not going to have the instant payoff, but that longer term thing around having the ability to drive traffic beyond 12 months from now for something that you did 6 months ago, that's huge. Okay, I love this. Let me clarify something real quick. So think about somebody who's listening today, who's, let's say, is a coach. Or maybe they have a digital course. Like, who's Pinterest really ideal for when you think around the kinds of businesses who should be thinking about leveraging this traffic vehicle?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because one of the myths that I see all the time is like, if you don't do DIY and recipes, you can't use Pinterest, right? So there's a little bit of a mindset switch to have here. If you are in one of the classic Pinterest categories, so interior design, fashion, DIY, recipes, whatever, you are going to have a much bigger audience on Pinterest. It just is what it is. But to directly answer your question, anybody who has a website that wants more traffic should be using Pinterest, right? But it's understanding that, and I experienced this, online marketing definitely has an audience on Pinterest, but am I going to see the kind of stats that a DIY recipe blog is going to see? No. So you've got to understand the expectations. So, I mean, it's funny. People ask me this all the time. I'm like, do you have a website? Do you want more traffic? Well, do you solve a problem? Because that's what we go into business for, is to solve somebody's problem that we happen to know how to help with. If you solve a problem, people are searching for how to also solve that problem.
Yeah. Okay. And it's interesting because I think to myself, I'm like, I don't necessarily go on Pinterest to search for these kinds of things, but we have to be really mindful that just because we physically do not, so for example, I also don't search for things on YouTube. I do not. I go to Google, right. And that comes up, right? But I have to be very mindful, and I want to encourage people listening too, just because it's not a behavior that you do does not mean that that's how everyone else behaves. The data shows that people are on these platforms searching, as you already described. So I think we really have to separate our own consumer behavior, searching behavior, separate from our ideal person. It's not always the same.
Right. And I'm so glad you brought up Google, because a lot of people don't know that Google indexes Pinterest.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go on, right? So when you go on Google and you search for whatever, you will see Pinterest boards, individual pins. You will see those results come up in Google. So it's not just that you're getting those results on Pinterest. It's all these other places that are being indexed or are indexing Pinterest that it's like doubling your strategy.
Yes. Okay. You convinced me. All right. So we need to use Pinterest, right? This would be a very smart strategy, thinking for repurposing content, driving traffic back to website. What are some, I wrote this question down because I really genuinely had it as I was thinking about my business. Let's be realistic for a business owner listening going, all right, Kara, you got me. Like, I want to do this, but just like with anything, it's like, oh my gosh, I don't have any time. So realistically, for a business owner to get some traction, how much time do they need to carve out for something like this to see that slow traction?
Right. So that is a really great question. Just like every other platform, what Pinterest values is consistency. So anybody that tells you you have to pin 10 times a day, or you have to, whatever it is, you don't know that for your business or your audience, right? The only thing Pinterest cares about is, are you showing up consistently, creating new content for this platform? I have people in my program that do a few pins a week. I have some that have gotten to the point where their system that I teach is so like their plates are all spinning that they are doing 10 or 15 a day, right? So this is part of why I love what I do and how I've created my brand, is find what works for you and start slow. Because where we get lost in overwhelm is, like you were saying, I'm convinced I'm going to do Pinterest. If you went in tomorrow and were like, okay, I'm going to do this whole, excuse my French, balls to the wall strategy, and I'm going to create 15 pins per day you're going to be burnt out in a week. And you're going to drop it and maybe come back to it a year from now and go, I really should have stuck with that. I should have done that. I should have whatever. I would so much rather business owners start with 1 pin a day, 1 pin a week, whatever, just get started so you can start being present on the platform, start showing up in search results, and get your systems down and get comfortable with using the platform, and then start kicking it up a notch. Now, with that being said, someone that is going to hire out for it, or, they have all sorts of time to start going all in on a strategy, and maybe they want to do some paid advertising, they're going to see results quicker. It's just like anything. If you start slow and organic, that is the digital world that we live in for marketing. Mm-hmm. You're going to see results, but it'll be slower and more drawn out. So it's really up to how much you want to prioritize Pinterest strategy for your business. But I would say the most important thing is not how many times are you pinning a day. It's that you're there and you're consistent, and you set yourself up for success. You don't set yourself up for burnout and dropping the ball.
Yeah. Okay. I love this. There's so many analogies that go with that, right? Like the whole metaphor of someone who's like, oh, I finally want to get healthy again. And and they go buy all the green juice and all the things, right. And they go gung ho. And then the third day they're in the pantry eating Twinkies and Cheetos, because it's not sustainable. So, right. I mean, anyone take that analogy, make it for yourself. But I love that you I think there's this unsexiness of the idea of I'm just going to do 1 a week. I don't know any entrepreneur that has such low ambition where they say I'm going to do a new thing. I'm going to do Pinterest. And then they're not going to be and I'm going to start with 1 a week, because it sounds lame, right? They want to do the ideal picture. We're all high achievers. We want to go out with that. So do you have any recommendations for someone who's I know that's the next step for someone. They're I'm going to do it. I'm going to carve it out. We all have great intentions, but our eyes are bigger than our plates in this scenario. How would you help someone really buffer that? It's really cool to do the 1 a week.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to talk about the plate here. It must be Thanksgiving soon,
Yeah,
right?
totally
We're just
is.
talking about food. So my biggest piece of advice is take a look at your plate and know how much time you actually have. This is a whole nother piece of my business where I talk about ideal work weeks and structuring your time. If you're a busy entrepreneur, a parent, all the things. Do you really have time to do that Black Friday deal or whatever it is? Do you really have time to learn something new? If you're really gung ho about it and you want to create the time, is there something else you can give up? Like, be really honest with yourself as an entrepreneur with how much time you actually have. If you know that you are brain dead in the evenings and the only time you have is in the evenings, is that going to be a good fit for you? Probably not. So get really honest with yourself about the size of your plate and how much room you actually have. After that, schedule the time to do it. This is one of the biggest lessons I've learned as an entrepreneur is I can sign up for all the programs I want. If I don't schedule the time to go through and learn and implement, I don't ever do it. I'm certainly busy enough to never crack the books on anything new. I can keep myself busy. So schedule the time to do it. And as far as being okay, is that your question? Like, how do you be okay with one a week?
Yeah, I think we're making a beautiful pivot here, right? Because this is where we're going to take the conversation next. It's like we plan this. I remember, so we're talking about this idea about entrepreneurs, right? We have the ability, or we have this tendency to be very ambitious. And I love this plate analogy, right? Like in my head, I'm thinking there's no second helping when it comes to what we have, although we think like, oh, later, we could do it later. But really that plate analogy, if you only have so much time, so much mental capacity, so much focus, so much creativity, it's on the plate. And we keep thinking we can keep going back for seconds and thirds, and it just doesn't happen. Yet we don't learn. And every time it's something new, like with Pinterest or Instagram, we get like, oh, this is going to be different this time. I'm going to do it the right way. I'm going to do it 3 times a day, or I'm going to commit to something higher. Right. I don't know. Maybe this is just me, right? You just never seem to learn the lesson that the eyes are always bigger than the plate. So I think this makes a really big, beautiful pivot. I remember you sharing with me, I don't know, it's probably 6 months ago, we were sitting in the coffee shop and you're like, I have this like, this is going to sound so lame, but you didn't say this, but it's like this tickle of an idea that I really want to venture out. And you started describing this angst that you see so much with entrepreneurs around putting way too many things on their plate, and not like, it was so simple as when an entrepreneur shows up to their computer, how they even structure their day to get these kinds of tactical tasks done. Yes. So let's talk about now, like your love and passion for this idea of productivity to create space for not only what's important, but for these technical things. Share a little bit about that and that leg of your business.
Yeah, I would love to. So this is one of those things where I have been doing this and tweaking this and building this since day one of my business. And I had no idea what I was sitting on and how much it was needed as far as sharing it. So when I first started my business, we had a 2-year-old, one child, she was 2. And they don't teach you entrepreneurship in school. Not really. They don't teach you time management and productivity. So I was wading through having a young child, trying to start a business, too much flexibility, right? When you have no structure, then it's just kind of chaos, and you're like, how do I? So I saw the need pretty quickly to structure my days. And the first thing that I tried was time blocking. And time blocking is talked about a lot. And immediately I felt like a failure. And the reason I felt like a failure was because the time blocking was so structured that it never quite worked the way I thought it was going to work in my head. And then things fell off the list, things didn't get done. And it was so structured that it set me up for failure. So over the years, I created this version of an ideal work week that is based on theme days. And basically, originally I called them theme buckets, but really it was, okay, the first thing I'm going to do is create the structure around my days. Like, I know after 3 p.m. is all kid and family time. That's when I pick up from school. It's, whatever. So 3 to 8 p.m. is done. Okay. In the morning, I know I start work at 8 a.m. And so if I'm looking at 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., and then I start filling in, I know I need to eat lunch and drink water and get up from my desk and take a quick walk. That's going to happen, whatever. We end up with these blocks of time that's not like 15-minute increments or 30-minute, maybe it's my morning block or my afternoon block. The problem is you get to that point and then you just have this huge to-do list, right? And you're like, you start grinding through that to-do list and you end the day feeling exhausted, but like you really didn't get a lot done. We've all had those days. I still have those days, right? I'm like, I don't know what I did today, but I'm really tired. So by having theme days based around like what you need to do in your business, you take a look at your day and you're like, okay, I have a morning block and an afternoon block. What can I do in my theme for today that is going to move my business forward? So for example, my Mondays are content creation days. Those are when I outline content that I want to create or graphics for content marketing, whatever it is. I do no meetings on Mondays. It's just time to myself to really be in that creative space. Tuesday is the day that I dedicate to Pinterest and my program, Pin Power Method, and anything that needs to happen in there. Wednesdays is like client work and admin work, right? So you have these general buckets of the major things that happen in my business that have to get done that move my business forward. So when you start off the week with your brain dump to-do list, you can start sorting them into your theme days by what can happen when. And it frees up so much brain space and energy. And the biggest benefit is you're doing less context switching. And if you've been in the online entrepreneur space, the context switching is a big no-no because you're just losing time and brain power, and it's all the million tabs open in your brain. So when you group your tasks together by your days, you're able to focus and get in that flow state and not have the context switching. So I've been perfecting this for years based on sheer need of like, I need to build a business and I also need to live a life, and I'm not blogging at 8 o'clock at night on a Sunday ever again. Like I got to figure this out. I didn't realize how well this worked until online school last year. So the then 2-year-old was a second grader, and we did 100% online school for her. And I saw her really struggling with context switching with like, here's your 5 lessons in 5 different subjects every day. And halfway through the year, I said, this is not working for anybody. She's stressed. I'm stressed. Like, it's just not working. And I said, what if we started theming her days? And so Monday, she would do all her math for the week. Tuesday, she would do all of her social studies and language arts for the week. Wednesday, she would do all of her science for the week. She finished her school year in April with a 97%. And it wasn't until I saw how this method worked for my 8-year-old that I was like, I have to share this. This is a really big deal. And so it kind of led to that moment when we were having coffee and I was like, I think I need to do something with this, because I am not the only one that is trying to build a business as a mom or somebody with many other obligations that, quite frankly, are more of a priority often, right? So that's how that all started. And Pinterest fits into it beautifully, because the reason I niched into Pinterest is not only the ROI, but how it's so scalable, and the batching method that I learned and now teach to make it something that I do once a month, not every day, not several times a week. So it's part of this whole, I need to find time on my plate once a month to get my entire Pinterest strategy done. To me, that sounds a lot better than trying to figure out reels every day or what stories and all that, whatever, because I want to go do other things.
Don't we all, right?
Yes.
Okay, I love everything that you just said. And I would imagine that anyone listening, their brain was firing off around like, oh yeah, I used to try to do it. Like we've all tried versions of that, right? But even if it's just a reminder to come back, I think anyone listening is going, okay, so how Kara described with the theme days, like, oh my gosh, that works so beautiful for you. I love theme days. I love that direction. I tried that for a while and I got away from it. So I'm making notes. But I think coming back to like, we all try these different things. And when you said like, this isn't working for me, like we're as entrepreneurs, I think sometimes we forget that we get to remake our own rules whenever we want to. And I love like the inspiration of your daughter helping you. Anyways, I'm obsessed with you. You know that. I learn from you all the time.
Yeah, but it's like anything else that you try new, you have to actually use it and do it for it to be successful. I love, I use the Full Focus Planner, and you got to actually use it for the planner to work. And I overlay my whole theme day planning method on top of it and, in conjunction. But anybody that's learning something new, whether that's Pinterest or, whatever you decide to do, give it a fair shake. And then decide if it's right for you and it fits.
Yes. Okay. I love this. I used to use the Full Focus Planner. Side note, we'll link it in the show notes. I was a user of that from like day one when Michael Hyatt came out with that in 2017. I have since switched to Best Self Co. on a couple other things. There's some fun. I also have like a bunch of those on my wall. But I think what you said is so powerful, right? It's not about which planner to use. It's the fact that you actually have to use the system. And what I always find is I get people asking me all the time. Actually, one of my top YouTube videos is me reviewing the Full Focus Planner, ironically. Nice. But I have people ask me all the time. And it's like, it's really not about the planner, although they're all great. It's about using it. So, okay. So I love all of this. I want to do something new on the show. I mentioned before I was going to do this for you. I want to try something that I was inspired by my friend Ellen Yin, mutual friend. I watched her do a podcast interview live in downtown Portland last night. And on her podcast, she does something called the lightning round. And I want to do that with you with a series of questions. Some are going to be related to speaking, since that's what I talk about all the time. And a lot of people listen to the show want to be better at speaking. I want to know, Kara, how does speaking show up right now in your business?
Yes. So as we know, there's not a lot of live events happening, or there haven't been. So speaking shows up in the content that you want to create, video, podcasting, whatever it is.
Yeah. I mean, we do it all the time, every day, right? Yeah. Where I'm just thinking about in your entrepreneurial career, where has been your favorite place that you've spoken?
Oh gosh. That would be a difficult decision between Bermuda and the Bahamas.
Ooh, oh, you picked locations. Okay. What were they like? Were you speaking at an event, or what was the context around it?
Yeah, it was actually the same conference, the Coterie Retreat, which is a wedding industry magazine and membership. So I was speaking to wedding planners and people in the wedding industry about Pinterest.
I love it. You fancy. Okay, I love that so much. Okay, I don't know if you're going to be able to answer this one, but I'm going to try it on for you. I want you to tell me, when was the last time you experienced big nerves when it came to speaking, or maybe nervous around something in business?
My goodness. I would say anytime that I am asked to be a guest, I have that little bit of like, because I want to do well and provide value. So I would say the last time I really truly felt that was the joint presentation that I did with ConvertKit a week and
recently.
A half ago.
That was within the last couple of weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is that a normal thing for you? Do you still get nervous when you speak?
Oh, absolutely. Because I tend to be a very off the cuff person, and I riff a lot, if you can't tell. So I'm always afraid that I'm going to like go off on like a tangent, So yes, I do get nervous because
you're not alone in that. When I do a lot of conversations with entrepreneurs, I didn't realize that is something that so many of us are worried about. And I think what you said, it's the nerves are good, right? Because you want to do a good job. Yeah. And I think that's it's honest. It's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Okay. Two more questions. I love learning, and I know you love reading and listening to things. What books or podcasts are you super into right now?
Yes. So I have gotten hooked on Jordan Peterson. He did the 12 Rules for Life, which is one of the books I read during 75 Hard. And I am reading his follow-up book right now, which is Beyond Order. And it's one of those books where you really have to pay attention, and like you can't have other things happening while you're reading it because it's so dense, but it's so thought-provoking. Podcast wise, I am loving the Mindset Mentor, who is Rob Dial Jr. He does snackable content. So they're like 20-minute episodes, and it's all mindset stuff around entrepreneurship. And that's my favorite, like getting ready in the morning podcast.
Yeah. I love that. I love the getting ready in the morning podcast. That's been my thing lately too, is like put it in my ears, do my makeup, like get ready. It's what a great way to start the day.
Yes.
Okay. You mentioned 75 Hard. So let's go there for a moment. So those who listen to the show have been listening for a while. They know last spring, I discovered the 75 Hard challenge and went all in on it and lasted the whole 75 Hard. And I actually went 96 days. I can't remember, before I got sick and injured and then fell off the rocker. But you also did it, my dear. So give us your take on the 75 Hard challenge.
Yeah. So I found out about it because of you. When we met for coffee, I was like, oh, tell me more. This sounds like something I would want to do.
We met for coffee and I couldn't have the coffee, right? I was drinking like black coffee and I couldn't eat any of the dang muffins.
So I am one of those people that loves setting goals for myself and jumping through the hoop to challenge myself. And I actually started day one on my 41st birthday as a gift to myself, because I wanted to give myself the gift of following through on something so intense.
Did we talk about that? Because that was me. It was right after my 37th birthday. It was 2 weeks later that I'm like, this has to be my best, healthiest year. So I had the birthday tie-in too.
Nice. And most people are like, what is that, a sick joke or something? I was like, no, it really is like, I'm giving myself a gift. So it's super stringent. I don't know if you want to, get into all the rules and whatever, but
you guys can go back. I did a 75 Hard episode with Franny Wilson, who was the one that inspired me. We did all of that. So go back a few episodes back in June of 2021. We talk about it.
Yeah. So my takeaway was, people get a little crazy with the rules, right? I was in a couple Facebook groups, and there's a lot of people that were they weren't nice to people online. So there was a lot of, this doesn't count, or you fail, or, all this kind of stuff, which I was like, no. And my takeaway was, it was really great to do. I made it my own. I didn't break any rules, but I definitely made it my own and what was best for me. And my biggest takeaway, talk about not being able to turn the entrepreneur brain off, was like, this guy has an amazing funnel.
Yeah, because it's like this free challenge, right? That you go through.
This free challenge that all the thing. I was like, this guy is a marketer. Like, he is that guy, right?
Totally. My brain.
Yeah. So what's been interesting is since then, so I completed it in the summer and we moved to a different state at the end of summer. I know for 100% certain I would not have been able to deal with what we dealt with as a family logistically and moving out of state, and still completed that. So I'm really glad I finished it before all of that happened. But there are things that I took with me and things that I'm like, I never need to do that again. I'm good. So I have a different morning routine now. I copied your morning routine because it was brilliant. It was 45-minute walk first thing. It takes care of your outside, and then your outside workout, and then read while you're having your coffee.
Side note, you and I passed each other quite a few mornings, 5:20 a.m. We would be like the shadowy figures through our neighborhood.
Right. So what I took away from that was I really loved having that time to myself in the morning, as you can relate to with little kids. So I still now get up at 5, but instead what I do is I come into my office and I do about 15 minutes of yoga, drink a big glass of water, and meditate and read. And that's my morning routine now. So it doesn't feel so like intense, punishing, whatever, but it is that integrity of I'm getting up and doing these self-nourishing things before I have to mom and have to taxi and have to whatever. So there were some really good takeaways from that for sure.
I love that. And I think that also goes back to what we were talking about of being able to have that dedicated space for your theme days, right? If you have that time in the morning, it really sets you up to then be more focused and present in those moments and follow through with the commitments that you already made.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Oh my gosh. Kara, I could talk about these things all day long, but we got to land this plane here. So
yes,
I know we covered a lot of things today, right? I really love how you broke down Pinterest. You made a really good case. I'm very excited about genuinely around this. And I know people listening are going to want to learn a little bit more about it. So where can people connect with you online, and specifically where can they learn a little bit more about your Pin Power method?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm at karachase.com, and it's CARACHACE.
Yes. And we will link to it in the show notes. So if you just, wherever you're listening to this, show notes. And then we also have everything linked on our website.
Yeah. So there is where you will find my free masterclass on tripling your traffic with Pinterest and how to do it in a way that actually fits into your schedule and doesn't overwhelm you. Right. So that's like a 1 hour free masterclass where you can learn all the beginning stuff about how to make that happen. That specifically is at karachase.com/free.
Perfect. Okay. I love that. And then I know you don't love hanging out on Instagram, but you are on Instagram. Where can people connect and also be like, oh my gosh, this podcast episode was amazing. Take a screenshot and tag Kara and I on Instagram. Anywhere else?
Yes. Yeah. So the benefit of having a name that's spelled differently is I have my handle everywhere, right? So it's just at Kara Chase on Instagram, and I am in there poking around quite frequently. So yeah, you can find me there.
Perfect. All right. Parting words, Kara, is there anything else you'd like to say today to listeners listening who are excited about Pinterest, excited about speaking, they're excited about ending the year strong, whatever final words that you want to share?
I would say that the best time to start was yesterday. When you think about the story that I conveyed about how one of my top traffic drivers, Can I Speak, is a blog I wrote in 2015. Don't wait to do that. Just get started one bite at a time. Take it easy, make it work for you. But it's like that apple tree quote, right? The best time to plant it was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. Do that with Pinterest. You will see results if you stick with it.
I love it. And I'm excited to start implementing this in our business. Dorothy, my right hand on my team, she's been playing with it a little bit over the last year. And I'm excited to take what we talked about today and get into your masterclass and learn more so that we can start experiencing the benefits of the evergreen Pinterest model.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Love. Thanks so much, girl, for being here. And hey, listeners, thanks so much for coming into another episode. We got another couple really great guests coming in the next few weeks. So we'll see you back here next week, same time, same place.
See ya.